This is Christy, and we have merchandise. Go to howtolovelitpodcast.com and check out amazing t-shirts, mugs, stickers. If you love great quotes, we have some of our favorites. If you love silliness, check out our mascot, Brain Man. Go to howtolovelitpodcast.com, click on the shop button, and find something for that person who needs to be reminded that we are fashioned creatures but half made up. Mary Shelley said that.
Robinhood is introducing forecast contracts so you can trade the presidential election. Through Robinhood, you can now trade financial derivatives contracts on who will win the U.S. presidential election, Harris or Trump, and watch as contract prices react to real-time market sentiment. Each contract you own will pay $1 on January 8, 2025 if that candidate is confirmed as the next U.S. president by Congress. Learn more about the presidential election contracts on Robinhood at www.robinhood.com/election. The risk of loss in trading commodity interests can be substantial. You should therefore carefully consider whether such trading is suitable for you in light of your financial condition. Restrictions and eligibility requirements apply. Commodity interest trading is not appropriate for everyone. Displayed prices are based on real-time market sentiment. This event contract is offered by Robinhood Derivatives, a registered futures commission merchant and swap firm. Exchange and regulatory fees apply. Learn more at www.robinhood.com/election.
Hi, I'm Christy Schreiber, and we're here to discuss books that have changed the world and have changed us.
And I'm Gary Schreiber, and this is the How to Love Lit podcast. In 1979, Richard Dyers published a seminal book titled Stars. It was the first critical study of what we call stardom. What's a star? I'm not talking about balls of energy in the sky that emit light, but that human that projects an image usually on a screen of sorts or a light of sorts in the figurative sense. The functional role of movie star or a rock star is that of a performer, a character on a screen or on a stage. But a performer becomes a star when somehow the performer crosses over from a persona on the screen or stage to a persona off the screen or stage. Dyer concluded that stars project an image of who they want the world to think of them as being. And, of course, that's true. And smart stars are careful about this, and they hire people to help them do this. And however, that's only part of it. There's another part of being a star, and that part is not necessarily created by the performers themselves. A star is created by the audience and whatever cultural meaning this combination creates for the world. And we, as fans, create stars, not necessarily the performer or even the big companies that create their images. Being a star is something that so many envy and literally sell their souls to become. But if we look at the examples in Dyer's book, as well as many we could just come up with on our own, many of them have terribly tragic stories. And 2 out of the 3 that Dyer studied ended their own lives, Judy Garland and Marilyn Monroe.
Most of us assume we would be better at it than some of the people we see getting into trouble on TMZ. And most of us consider that becoming a star is something akin to winning the lottery. And if you look at the data, we aspire to that. According to Morning Consult, 57% of Gen Zers want to become social media influencers. In a YouGov poll, 53% of Americans wanted to be famous. From this side of the screen, it seems like being a star is a glamorous way to live. And yet, the odds that most of us will ever live that life are minuscule. Only 1 in 10,000 of us will become a celebrity.
And honestly, I know when people were asked that question in a survey, they said yes, but I do wonder if it's true. Would most of us really enjoy being a star? Stardom is a full-time job that goes well beyond the relatively little bit of time spent in front of a camera or on the stage. And the full-time job is in a presentation of the public persona, and that requires another skill set. It's a 24-hour job, and it takes a toll. So many artists and actors and musicians and athletes are successful at their craft, but are less able or even willing to manage the rest of it. The person we're featuring today is an example of a person who never gets out of the public eye no matter what she does. Be it going to dinner or to a ball game or walking to her car. The public is interested in what she wears, if there is a burn mark on her arm, if she cuts her hair or she eats fast food. She's become a product to be consumed. And yes, we are talking about Taylor Swift. And remarkably, she has managed her image off the screen as well as she has managed the one on it. The result of being able to manage both things is that she has become the most famous entertainer on the planet. In 2023, the International Federation of the Phonographic Industry, or the IFPI, named Taylor Swift the biggest musical artist in the world.
And of course, this shocked no one. Who else would it be?
Well, it was the fourth year in a row for her to win the title. She's the first star in the world to ever win the title 4 times. Since signing her first record deal at the age of 16 and then releasing her first single in 2006, she has released 14 albums, first as a country singer, then pop, then folk. She's won 14 Grammys and is the only artist ever to win Album of the Year 4 times. She holds the record for the most #1 albums by any woman in history. She holds the record for the most albums to debut at #1. Her Eras Tour alone has broken records with a song list of 44 songs. That's a 3-hour runtime with a narrative divided into 10 different acts, one for each era. Her Eras Tour is the first in history to hit the $1 billion milestone and was so popular that it shut down Ticketmaster, sold out stadiums, and inspired travel across the globe, literally affecting the global economy. She's over 282 million followers on Instagram. She has released multiple movies and documentaries. And when she started dating American football star and, shall I say, Kansas City Chief tight end Travis Kelce, there was a 53% increase in viewership of football for girls between the ages of 12 to 17. I mean, need I say more? There is no one more famous by any measurement that one could imagine on this planet.
No, and in May of 2022, she delighted self-prescribed Swifties, as we call them, from around the world by agreeing to speak at NYU's commencement that would be held in Yankee Stadium.
Now, was it held in Yankee Stadium because of a large graduating class or because of the speaker?
Well, they still had to limit the people that could come in.
Well, she was the recipient of an honorary doctorate, and as the guest of honor, she delivered the commencement address. She was also the first person to speak at an NYU graduation since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. That made this 2022 event a first of its kind in-person event since the pandemic.
Well, and it was a huge deal because Taylor Swift is a huge deal and everything she does is a huge deal. But we're going to analyze it because she did a really good job. And there's a lot to learn about public speaking by reading and discussing it.
Well, as someone who has endured literally hundreds of commencement addresses over my career, I have to say that is no small feat. And not many people give impressive, memorable commencement addresses. In fact, how does a person stand out among the thousands of speakers who stand on stages every spring at colleges and high schools around the globe meting out life advice?
Well, the first thing is to be somebody people want to hear from. Most speakers derail right there.
That would include me.
But in her case, she could safely check that box. Even if you weren't personally a Swiftie, who would not want to celebrate their degree with one of the most famous people in the world? But if we think about it from her perspective, that's a lot of pressure. I mean, what could she say? Swift hadn't even attended college. She didn't even attend high school. She left after the 10th grade and finished her education with homeschool. And yet the image she projected as the day of the address approached was excitement. She posted on her Instagram, wearing a cap and gown for the first time. See you soon, NYU. I mean, she's not pretending to be an academic. She projects authenticity and energy, and that's what's fun. Most people, if they're like me, I hadn't even thought about the fact that Taylor Swift, one of the most successful professional business women in the world, had never graduated from anything. And I thought it was kind of cool that she was excited about the experience and didn't back down from that.
Which begs the question, what will she say? I mean, what could a person say that hasn't already been said? What could any person say that hasn't been said a million times and endless cliches? I mean, I guess no one should be surprised that Taylor Swift, who had been writing to her generation since she was in the 10th grade, she found the right words. And so today, we read and discuss Taylor Swift's NYU 2022 commencement address, and not her songs.
Hi, I'm Taylor. Last time I was in a stadium this size, I was dancing in heels and wearing a glittery leotard. This outfit is much more comfortable. I would like to say a huge thank you to NYU's chairman of the Board of Trustees, Bill Berkeley, and all the trustees and members of the board, NYU's president, Andrew Hamilton, provost, Catherine Fleming, and the faculty and alumni here today who have made this day possible. I feel so proud to share this day with my fellow honorees, Susan Hawkfield and Felix Matos Rodriguez, who humble me with the ways they improve our world with their work. As for me, I'm 90% sure that the main reason I'm here today is because I have a song called 22. And let me just say, I am elated to be here with you today as we celebrate and graduate New York University's class of 2022.
You know, there's a lot that a speaker needs to do right off the bat to be effective. And even though Swift may not have formally taken a course on rhetoric, she is following Aristotle's age-old formula. Aristotle taught rhetoricians to do three things to be effective: establish their credibility, ethos; make an emotional connection, pathos; and build a line of reasoning, logos. Now, she starts with two out of these three, beginning with the ironic line, "Hi, I'm Taylor Swift." Why say that? I mean, she was just introduced, but it's intentional, it's informal. It's like she's our friend, and she follows that introduction up by reminding us that she's a superstar, and she has performed in a space very much like that. She's been there before, but in a leotard. Swift established her credibility and made us feel a kinship with her within the first two lines. So Swift clearly understands the rhetorical situation.
Well, it's disarming, it's cute imagery. She also reminds us that she is a success in her field. Wow. If you dared to doubt that she was deserving of that degree, consider, have you been invited to perform in Yankee Stadium? I mean, she's making the argument that she deserves the stage. You use that expression, the rhetorical situation, Gary, and that's an important one. That expression encompasses all the things a person has to consider about the situation when they make choices about what they want to say. Context. That means the time, the place, the occasion. In this case, it's 2022 at a college graduation in New York City. There's the exigence. That's a word that means the person, why is that person even talking at all? In her case, she's talking because she's received an honorary doctorate. Then there's the audience. Again, in this case, the graduates, most of them in their early 20s, the parents of those graduates, the faculty and the staff who work at the university. Some of them may be fans, others may not be. So what are their expectations? Who is she in relation to them? What is her purpose for being invited there? A good speaker or writer wants to meet their audience's expectations, but they also want to surprise that audience.
So in this case, the expectation is first a level of formality, but also that she would be respectful of the academic accomplishments of almost every person there. And, you know, we see her meeting that expectation, but surprising us, she's informal, but not too much. And for one, she's respectful. She knows she's one of several recipients and acknowledges the sanctity of the occasion. She acknowledges the accomplishments of the people on the stage who work at the university. She demonstrates respect for her audience and identifies with them too. Like everyone here is here to get degrees.
Not a single one of us here today has done it alone. We are each a patchwork quilt of those who have loved us, those who have believed in our futures, those who showed us empathy and kindness or told us the truth even when it wasn't easy to hear, those who told us we could do it when there was absolutely no proof of that. Someone read stories to you and taught you to dream and offered up some moral code of right and wrong for you to try and live by. Someone tried their best to explain every concept in this insanely complex world to the child that was you, as you asked a bazillion questions like, how does the moon work? And how can we eat salad but not grass? And maybe they didn't do it perfectly. No one ever can. Maybe they aren't with us anymore. In that case, I hope you'll remember them today. If they are in this stadium, I hope you'll find your way to express your gratitude for all the steps and missteps that have led us to this common destination. I know that words are supposed to be my thing, but I will never be able to find the words to thank my mom and dad and my brother Austin for the sacrifices they made every day so I could go from singing in coffee houses to standing up here with you all today, because no words would be enough. To all the incredible parents, family members, mentors, teachers, allies, friends, and loved ones here today, we have supported those students in their pursuit of educational enrichment. Let me say to you now, welcome to New York. It's been waiting for you. So again, here she is. She meets the expectation of her audience and she surprises her audience. After creating a tone of respect towards the academic environment and the accomplishments of her audience, she demonstrates a sincere sense of gratitude. She appeals to our emotions, as Aristotle would call pathos, by opening up about her family, her mom, dad, brother Austin. She acknowledges the sacrifices they made to create her success. She uses her brother's first name and the images of her singing in an unknown coffee shop to remind us once again she's just like us. She hasn't always been famous.
But then she lands the line that thrilled the Swifties. Welcome to New York. It's been waiting for you. For those of you who don't know, that's a title of a hit song from her album 1989, her fifth album that came out in 2014. And titled after the year of her birth. It won Album of the Year and has made Rolling Stone's list of the top 500 greatest albums of all time. So obviously it's a fan favorite, as is the city of New York itself. And of course, that's another bond she has with that particular crowd. They have all been living in New York and likely love it. And Swift lives there too and loves it. And she's voiced specifically dreaming about living in New York and then moving there. So, it's a connection that they all share.
I'd like to thank NYU for making me technically, on paper at least, a doctor. Not the type of doctor you would want around in the case of an emergency, unless your specific emergency was that you desperately needed to hear a song with a catchy hook and an intensely cathartic bridge section. Or if your emergency was that you needed a person who can name over 50 breeds of cats in 1 minute. I never got to have a normal college experience per se. I went to public high school until the 10th grade and then finished my education doing homeschool work on the floors of airport terminals. Then I went out on the road for radio tour, which sounds incredibly glamorous, but in reality, it consisted of a rental car, motels, and my mom and I pretending to have loud mother-daughter fights with each other during boarding so no one would want to sit in the empty seat between us on Southwest. As a kid, I always thought I would go away to college, imagining the posters I would hang on the wall of my freshman dorm. I even set the ending of my music video for my song Love Story at my fantasy, imaginary college, where I meet a male model reading a book on the grass, and with one single glance, we realized we had been in love in our past lives, which is exactly what you guys all experienced at some point in the last 4 years, right? But I really can't complain, not about having a normal college experience to you, because you went to NYU during a global pandemic, being essentially locked into your dorms and having to do classes over Zoom. Everyone in college during normal times stresses about test scores, but on top of that, you also had to pass like 1,000 COVID tests. I imagine the idea of a normal college experience was all you wanted too. But in this case, you and I both learned that you don't always get all the things in the bag that you selected from the menu and the delivery service that is life. You get what you get. And as I would like to say to you wholeheartedly, you should be very proud of what you've done with it today. You leave New York University and then go out into the world searching what's next, and so will I. Okay, again, we see here employ humor. I specifically like the line about Southwest. And again, she opens up about her personal life. Apparently, Taylor Swift is a cat person. She's ridden in coach on a commercial airplane. She attended public school, and she stayed in the kind of motels that we common people stay in. When she was in high school, she was like us, a mere mortal.
This, by the way, and she will allude to this later on in her speech, is part of why she's successful. Taylor Swift began her career and continues throughout in her career unapologetic about speaking as and for a distinctly adolescent female. Swift, especially when she was a teenager and in her 20s, did not try to be a traditional country or rock artist. She didn't try to be edgy or mature or cute. Instead, she chose to identify with girls just like her. And it turns out that there are quite a few.
I'd say so.
She responds to specific issues facing teens and preteens, and especially in country music at the time when she launched her career, that just was not done. So little girls and then big girls were able to find someone who spoke for them. They too like cats and dream of meeting a male model while laying on non-itchy grass in front of the main building to a fictional Ivy League university. And they too want a love story, which is the title of another one of her many popular hits.
So true. And she references COVID in a very realistic way. I mean, we have a friend who was a freshman at NYU in 2019, and I recall her excitingly moving to NYU. I mean, she talked about looking forward to restaurants, to the nightlife, to the opportunity of meeting a global community. But when she got there, it was only to be shut up in her dorm room. I mean, Swift isn't exaggerating the extent of the COVID protocols in New York City. She's underselling them. They were some of the harshest in the country, and such a disappointment for those who reference Taylor Swift's song again. Quote, dropped our bags on apartment floors and hoped to walk through a crowd with the village aglow.
Swift acknowledges the disappointment and pain of their experience, but then elevates it because she's talking to the graduates. And these are the ones who didn't quit. They took what they got and succeeded. This particular class is something to be proud of that is unique in its own way. They are like Taylor, and again, she identifies with her audience.
So, as a rule, I try not to give anyone unsolicited advice unless they ask for it. I'll go into this more later. I guess I have been officially solicited in this situation to impart whatever wisdom I might have to tell you, things that have helped me so far in my life. Please bear in mind that I in no way feel qualified to tell you what to do. You've worked and struggled and sacrificed and studied and dreamed your way here today. And so you know what you're doing. You'll do things differently than I did and for different reasons. So I won't tell you what to do because no one likes that. I will, however, give you some life hacks I wish I knew when I was starting out my dream of my career and navigating life, love, pressure, choices, shame, hope, and friendship. The first of which is life can be heavy, especially if you try to carry it all at once. Part of growing up and moving into new chapters of your life is about catch and release. What I mean that is knowing what things to keep and what things to release. You can't carry all things, all grudges, all updates on your ex, all enviable promotions your school bully got at the hedge fund his uncle started. Decide what is yours to hold and let the rest go. Oftentimes, the good things in your life are lighter anyway, so there's more room for them. One toxic relationship can outweigh so many wonderful, simple joys. You got to pick what your life has time and room for. Be discerning. Okay, so what do we see here? After the introductions, where she thanks people, and the background portion of her speech, where she speaks to the moment, she gets into the body paragraphs, and these center around pieces of advice. She's going to state the advice, then she's going, or in other words, make the claim, and then she's going to give evidence that supports her claim. Because she's speaking to students in their 20s, she uses expressions that are current and trendy for the moment. So instead of saying, I'm going to give you advice, she says, I'm going to give you life hacks. It's way cooler. Then she plays off a fishing term, catch and release. And of course, who doesn't want to take advice or life hacks from Taylor Swift? I mean, she's clearly done something right.
Well, it's good advice. And she's absolutely right. And every psychologist in the world would agree. You cannot carry unforgiveness, if you want to call it that, around. You can't carry it around if you want to succeed. It only leads to bitterness. And even if you have a right to it, she references the kind of grudges almost everyone in her audience would have had an opportunity of sharing, an experience with a bully or with an ex.
And of course, these are the things she sings about in her music. These are the events of life that have made her famous.
They most certainly are. Swift positioned herself early on with this persona of ordinariness, even awkwardness rather than glamour. Vanity Fair said it this way: Swift cultivates a gawky adorability in her music videos in which she often plays the unloved girl alone in a room, pining over the cute guy. This narrative of ordinariness is the same thing that makes us love, like, Harry Potter. I mean, we all feel this.
Secondly, learn to live alongside cringe. So that's her second piece of advice. Learn to live alongside cringe. No matter how hard you try to avoid being cringe, you will look back on your life and cringe retrospectively. Cringe is unavoidable over a lifetime. Even the term cringe might someday be deemed cringe. I promise you, you're probably doing or wearing something right now that you will look back on later and find revolting and hilarious. You can't avoid it, so don't try to. For example, I had a phase where for the entirety of 2012, I dressed like a 1950s housewife. But you know what? I was having fun. Trends and phases are fun. Looking back and laughing is fun. And while we're talking about things that make us squirm, but really shouldn't, I'd like to say I'm a big advocate for not hiding your enthusiasm for things. It seems to me that there is a false stigma around eagerness in our culture of unbothered ambivalence. This outlook perpetuates the idea that it's not cool to want it. The people who don't try are fundamentally more chic than people who do. And I wouldn't know because I've been a lot of things, but I've never been an expert on chic. But I'm the one who's up here, so you have to listen to me when I say this. Never be ashamed of trying. Effortlessness is a myth. The people who wanted it the least were the ones I wanted to date and be friends with in high school. The people who want it the most are the people I now hire to work for my company. I started writing songs when I was 12, and since then it's been the compass guiding my life, and in turn, my life guided my writing. Everything I do is just an extension of my writing, whether it's directing videos or a short film, creating the visuals for a tour, or standing on a stage performing. Everything is connected by my love of the craft, the thrill of working through ideas and narrowing them down and polishing it all up in the end. Editing, waking up in the middle of the night, throwing out the old idea because you just thought of a new or better one, or a plot device that ties the whole thing together. There's a reason they call it a hook. Sometimes a string of words just ensnares me and I can't focus on anything until it's been recorded or written down. As a songwriter, I've never been able to sit still or stay in one creative place for long. I've made and released 11 albums, and in the process, I've switched genres from country to pop to alternative to folk. And this might sound like a very songwriter-centric line of discussion, but in a way, I really do think we are all writers, and most of us write in a different voice for different situations. You write differently in your Instagram stories than you do in your senior thesis. You send a different type of email to your boss than you do your best friend from home. We are all literary chameleons, and I think it's fascinating. It's just a continuation of the idea that we are so many things all the time. And I know it can be really overwhelming figuring out who you want to be and when, who you are now, and how to act in order to get where you want to go. I have some good news. It's totally up to you. I have some terrifying news. It's totally up to you.
Cringe is a modern word for awkwardness, and notice that again, she uses modern slang to convey an old idea, the idea of awkwardness and social awkwardness and personal awkwardness. And Swift is known for her awkwardness. She's also known for finding freedom in awkwardness, and as such, She vocalizes the concerns of navigating the social difficulties inherent in middle school and high school and even college, and she embeds these in her songs. And if we look back at her top hits, we can see this theme. The song 15 is about a girl's first day of high school, and the girl looks forward to romances and friendships that don't materialize the way she's dreamed them up. And the song gives advice to a 15-year-old, but at the same time feels nostalgic to those bygone days. And when Swift went on tour to promote the album, this song was on in 2008, she talked about middle school bullies. She talks about bullies again in her song Mean, where she literally says, "You, with your words like knives and swords and weapons that you use against me, you have knocked me off my feet." Swift does not shy away from voicing youthful feelings in all her painfulness, and she validates them instead of calling youthful anxiety or fear petty. In this speech, she's not singing, but she's doing the exact same thing. She's validating and legitimizing the challenges of youth.
And listen how she builds a bridge between the problems of superstardom with the problems inherent of being an unpopular middle schooler. I mean, she's not saying they're the same thing, but what she's saying is that both are legitimate. Pain hurts, whoever you are and wherever you are. But she also says pain doesn't have to win. I said to you earlier that I don't ever offer advice unless someone asks me for it. And now I will tell you why. As a person who started my very public career at the age of 15, it came with a price, and that price was years of unsolicited advice. Being the youngest person in every room for over a decade meant that I was constantly being issued warnings from older members of the music industry, media, interviewers, executives, and this kind of advice often presented itself as thinly veiled warnings. See, I was a teenager at a time when our society was absolutely obsessed with the idea of having perfect young female role models. It felt like every interview I did included slight barbs by the interviewer about me one day running off the rails. And that meant a different thing to every person who said it to me. So I became a young adult while being fed the message that if I didn't make any mistakes, all the children of America would grow up to be perfect angels. However, if I did slip up, the entire earth would fall off its axis and it would be entirely my fault. And I would go to pop star jail forever and ever. It was all centered around the idea that mistakes equal failure and ultimately the loss of any chance at a happy or rewarding life. This has not been my experience. My experience has been that my mistakes led to the best things in my life, and being embarrassed when you mess up, it's part of the human experience. Getting back up, dusting yourself off, and seeing who still wants to hang out with you afterward and laugh about it, that's a gift. The times I was told no or wasn't included, wasn't chosen, didn't win, didn't make the cut, looking back, it really feels like those moments were as important, if not more crucial, than the moments that I was told yes. Not being invited to the parties and sleepovers in my hometown made me feel hopelessly lonely, but because I felt alone, I would sit in my room and write the songs that would get me a ticket somewhere else. Having label executives in Nashville tell me that only 35-year-old housewives listen to country music, and there was no place for a 13-year-old on their roster, made me cry in the car on the way home. But then I post my songs on MySpace. Yes, MySpace. And I would message with other teenagers like me who loved country music but just didn't have anyone singing from their perspective. Having journalists write in depth, oftentimes critical pieces about who they perceived me to be made me feel like I was living in some weird simulation. But it also made me look inward to learn about who I actually am. Having the world treat my love life like a spectator sport in which I lose every single game was not a great way to date in my teens and 20s, but it taught me to protect my private life fiercely. Being publicly humiliated over and over again at a young age was excruciatingly painful, but it forced me to devalue the ridiculous notion of minute-by-minute, ever-fluctuating social relevance and likability. Getting canceled on the internet and nearly losing my career gave me an excellent knowledge of all the types of wine.
Well, and that's a positive outlook. And, and it's a positive outlook on a series of negative and humiliating experiences. And Swift knows that we know all about all of her humiliations. And one of the most public happened in September of 2009 At the MTV VMA Awards, Swift had won the award for Best Female Video, and this, of course, was a big deal. She had competed with the greatest musicians in the world and two of the greatest performers of all time, Beyonce and Lady Gaga. The video that won was You Belong to Me, and it was not like either of the other two. It was conventional, straightforward narrative about high school, about a girl who's overshadowed by a cheerleader. And while Swift was on stage receiving her award, Kanye West jumped on the stage, interrupted her, snatched her microphone and said, "Yo, Taylor, I'm really happy for you. I'm going to let you finish. But Beyonce had one of the best videos of all time." I mean, the video he was referring to was Single Ladies, and we all know that to be true. I mean, people today still sing and watch Beyonce's video, but Swift was left standing there speechless, humiliated on stage in front of the world.
Swift is framing youthfulness as a shared experience. It doesn't matter if you're Taylor Swift, the billionaire, or Lizzie Bronner of Memphis, Tennessee. For all of us, the world can be cold and hard, and there's suffering in youth. There's humiliation, and we've all been bullied. But she's also claiming victory, not just for herself, but for all the Swifties. Even with the Kanye West thing, over the years, she's positioned herself with humility and modesty, and in the process, made the world her best friend. Listen to how she builds a reputation in this speech. Now, a refutation is when you guess what your naysayers may be thinking and you respond to their criticism before they even voice it. She says this, "Now, I know I sound like a consummate optimist, but I'm really not. I lose perspective all the time. Sometimes everything just feels completely pointless. I know the pressure of living your life through the lens of perfectionism. I know that I'm talking to a group of perfectionists because you here today are graduating from NYU. So this might be hard for you to hear. In your life, you will inevitably misspeak, trust the wrong person, underreact, overreact, hurt the people who didn't deserve it, overthink, not think at all, self-sabotage, create a reality where only your experience exists, ruin perfectly good moments for yourself and others, deny any wrongdoings, not take the steps to make it right, feel very guilty, let the guilt eat at you, hit rock bottom, finally address the pain you caused, try to do better next time. Rinse, repeat." And I'm not going to lie. These mistakes will cause you to lose things. I'm trying to tell you that losing things doesn't just mean losing. A lot of the time, when we lose things, we gain things too. And then we get to her conclusion.
Now you leave the structure and framework of school and chart your own path. Every choice you make leads to the next choice, which leads to the next, and I know it's hard to know which path to take. There will be times in your life where you need to stand up for yourself. Times when the right thing is actually to back down and apologize. Times when the right thing is to fight. Times when the right thing is to turn and run. Times to hold on with all you have, and times to let go with grace. Sometimes the right thing to do is to throw out the old schools of thought in the name of progress and reform. Sometimes the right thing to do is to sit and listen to the wisdom of those who have come before us. How will you know what the right choice is in these crucial moments? You won't. How do I give advice to this many people about their life choices? I won't. The scary news is you're on your own now, but the cool news is you're on your own now. I leave you with this. We are all led by our gut instincts, our intuition, our desires, and our fears, our scars, and our dreams. And you will screw it up sometimes. So will I. And when I do, you will most likely read about it on the internet. Hard things will happen to us. We will recover. We will learn from it. We will grow more resilient because of it. And as long as we are fortunate enough to be breathing, we will breathe in, breathe through, breathe deep, breathe out. And I'm a doctor, so now I know how breathing works. I hope you know how proud I am to share this day with you. We're doing this together, so let's just keep dancing like we're the class of 22.
So again, Swift uses parallelism here. There will be times. And as she does, she makes a final plea to look forward in your life with hope. And she has been accused a lot of being overly optimistic. I mean, there's been a lot of criticism centered around something akin that she peddles fairy tales to little girls. Critics claim she endorses a happily ever after ending to adolescence. Gary, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, that's what childhood is. It's the dream. It's to imagine. It's to believe. And, there are enough people out there making music bemoaning the agonies of the human experience. The reason why Swift is popular is precisely because she's not that. And for sure, she speaks to young girls, young women, to tell them that we are led by our gut instincts, our intuition, our desires and fears. That's what she's singing about. Breathe in, breathe out, be resilient, and don't forget to dream.
And of course, she ends with another allusion to one of her greatest hits, 22, where she sings, "We're happy, free, confused, and lonely at the same time. It's miserable and magical." In the chorus, she says this, "I don't know about you, but I'm feeling 22. Everything will be all right." And of course, the last line of the chorus, "We just keep dancing like we're 22. And she sings it in a key within a rain of notes every human on the planet can sing. It's not genius, except that it is. It's important, and it's healing, and it is optimism. But the world really needs to listen to her. It's good advice. Keep dancing like you're 22 and sing along.
Yes, that's always good advice, no matter how old or young you are. Even if you come away with a great little story of a mess of a dreamer with the nerve to adore you. See how I knew a few of her lyrics, too? Well, thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed this discussion of Taylor Swift's 2022 commencement address to New York University. We think it embodies Swift's message to the world, as well as a well-crafted example of great rhetoric. And if you are one of the half a dozen people that aren't familiar with her work, we hope we've helped you just a little bit with the lore that is Taylor Swift. Check out our other work at howtolovelitpodcast.com. Subscribe to our channel. Share an episode with a friend. Thank you for helping us make reading literature accessible and enjoyable to as many people as possible.
Peace out.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy to see if you could save when you bundle your home and auto policies. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary, not available in all states.